Hello there. Welcome to Portia's Place. I am your host, Travita, and we are working together through, well, we shouldn't say work because we're talking about drinking. We're just walking together, right, through this journey, talking about love and family and friendship and the importance of enjoying really great wine. So, welcome back. I'm happy to see you again. If you're here watching, that means that you probably enjoyed that very first episode and you're in for a treat because my mom is still with me. So we are going to continue our discussion on wines that are prevalent in the state of Virginia, which, by the way, is where I was born and raised, but more importantly, where Catherine Portia lived most of her life, I would say. So we had some really good discussion about her and some great wine in episode 1. So now we're going to continue the conversation about her. And then we'll get on over to the Viola's Vino a little bit later to talk and talk about some great Chardonnay. But we're going to now focus back on Granny. So, Mom, thank you again for being here. You look great, by the way.
Thank you.
My mama
Thank you
is
for
so
having
fly.
me.
She's so fly, y'all. Anyway, so I want to keep talking. So Granny never wanted people to know how old she was. So I'm not going to mention the year that she was born. But what I am going to say is she was born at a time where what you're about to hear will be pretty amazing. When my mom starts to share some of her education with you, it's mind-boggling to think back on it and what she was able to achieve. So, Mom, I'm going to kind of turn this over to you and ask you to talk a little bit about Granny's education.
Okay. So she graduated from high school at Nansemond County Training School, which is in the Holland area of what is now Suffolk, Virginia. She then attended what is now Norfolk State University.
Hold on a second. Behold the green and gold. All right, go ahead, my son.
Anyway, she only attended there for a couple of semesters until the program that was funding it was shut down due to the war effort. That's World War II. She worked in Norfolk for a couple of years. Well, I don't know for how long, but she worked in Norfolk for a while. And then she went to the Perfects Beauty School in Portsmouth, Virginia, where she graduated somewhere around 1943, qualifying her to become a licensed cosmetologist. Now let's fast forward to after she was married. In 1958, she saw an ad in the newspaper about classes being offered at a local hospital. She attended, and in April 1959, she received her certificate as a nurse assistant from the Rayford Memorial Hospital in Franklin, Virginia. She never lost her thirst for knowledge. She attended seminars presented by various agencies in the community for years. She would go to seminars concerning finances. She went to one time dealing with plants and shrubs, and came home and rooted a rubber tree plant. But she continued to go anywhere she thought she could learn something new.
You know, that's really amazing, especially during a time where women were not educated, particularly women from a rural area and a woman of color, you know, to be able to participate in these programs and to earn certifications. It's truly, she was a trailblazer, and I'm going to use that word a lot, I feel like, while we're talking about her, because she was. And I know that a lot of you probably have family members with the same type of history, things that you found out that they did. Like, you know, women rock. And we are, we are often trailblazers in doing things and trying things that no one's ever done. Listen, trust me when I tell you, no one in my granny's family went to anywhere that would, before her, would never imagine that Granny would go to a school that would later become Norfolk State for a few semesters. And who knows what would have happened if the funds had not been cut due to the war effort. And we definitely respect the military and the veterans and their needs for things. But I just think it's phenomenal. I grew up only knowing Granny to be a cosmetologist. Granddaddy had built that shop for her. She had her own little shop in the yard. And one chair or two, Mom? One chair in the shop. And I just remember seeing women coming to get their hair done by Granny, washed. And she pulled that hot comb out and those hot curlers and do hair. I also remember, and we'll probably talk about this too, but I also remember Granny going to drive to women's homes that couldn't get out to get their hair done. Mm-hmm. Like and as a little child, I think I felt frustrated because I just wanted to stay home and play. I didn't understand why we had to get in that Nova and drive to someone's house for her to do their hair. Of course, I'm older now, and I recognize like what a jewel she was to these women who, regardless of their circumstances, they still wanted their hair to look good. We always want to be fly, right? Yes, we do. And so thinking about her driving, well, even though she was driving slow, driving to these women's houses to do their hair, it was a really special thing. And I'm going to tell you, I don't remember her charging more because she had to use gas. She didn't. She didn't do that. But she understood the importance of women feeling good about themselves. And that often starts with our hair. Mm-hmm. Our hair is, what do they say, our crowning glory. Yes. Mm-hmm. So she was something else. What were you going to say, Mom?
No, the only thing I was going to add is that there were women who were educated in her generation, but the thing with her, as you touched on, she was the first in her family and from her background. She didn't come from a background of educated people. She was not second or third generation educated. So this was a first. And on her maternal side, I don't think anyone went to college for another probably 10 to 15 years after she did. So yes, that was something major coming from her background.
Right, correct. You're absolutely right. I don't want to offend anyone by saying that women of color from the rural communities were not educated, because I know that you were. So please don't hold that against me or think that I'm speaking out of turn. My mom is right. She was interpreting exactly what I was saying there. So, and that's very interesting too with her getting the certificate to be a nurse assistant. Like that's, and was never a nurse assistant.
Oh no.
But it was just important for her to do this and have that certificate. And I would imagine too, having a young child and wanting to at least have some additional education or knowledge of how to handle maybe certain situations was maybe in her mind too.
And I have to add this because this is something that I forgot when I was thinking about her education. But at some point in her life, she took a typing class because she could type, and at one time worked as secretary at the local school.
Wow.
That was before I was born, but yes, she worked as secretary at Nansemond County Training School. And so she did take a typing class at some point. I'm not sure where that was or when that was.
And of course, I know you remember this. She made me take a typing course.
Yes, she did.
Which was a great thing because I am still a great typer. But one summer, one thing I don't think I said in the first episode, up until I thought I was pretty much too grown to do this, I spent every summer with Granny and Granddaddy. And She would find things for me to do in the summers. I did a lot of 4-H. I did a lot of sewing, knitting, crocheting, macrame, all of that. But one summer, I took a typing class at the local community college at Paul D. Camp Community College, and it's where I learned to type, which was a great thing because when you see people typing with one finger or two fingers or using a pen, I am actually able to type. And so I know that was important to her as well, that I know how to do that. So that's amazing, and an amazing education for her. So let's switch gears a little bit because I, just kind of mentioned him as well. So tell me a little bit about how Granny met Granddaddy.
Well, she met him at church. One of his brothers struck up a conversation with her, and she looked at him and told him to be quiet. Let that quiet brother of yours say something. The quiet brother was Percy Hunter, and as they say, the rest is history. They married on June 18th, 1946.
Wow. I can totally see her saying, be quiet. Mom and I have been, just kind of talking about these stories about her and how in today's times we would say that my granny had no filter. She, God rest her soul, some people loved her, some people didn't like her. And they just didn't like that she was so outspoken and vocal. And, she said what was on her mind. And that doesn't always rub people the right way. I can say that there are people in my life who would probably say I'm exactly that way. I try to ask God to guard my tongue. But Granny was definitely someone that did speak her mind. So I can totally see her telling whichever of his brothers that might have been. I have an idea about which one it was, but I can totally see her saying that. And so that's awesome. And so, Mom, how long were they married?
They were married for 59 years.
59 years. That's unbelievable. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. And they died within 5 months of each other.
Yes. Which, I don't believe in coincidence, but I definitely, when you're married that long and together that long, I don't know if one can survive without the other for a long period of time. I just feel like that other half of you is gone. I remember, when Granny first got sick, and I just remember Granddaddy just didn't know what to do because she did it all. We're talking about the cooking and the cleaning, but more important, the cooking was the really big thing. She just did it all. And, Granddaddy he was a little lost without her because Catherine had always taken care of everything and taken care of him. And she certainly adored him. And my granny loved some tall men. I remember when she met Jeff and she just thought, oh my, she liked him. He was tall and he had a bald head that she always wanted to pluck. So, all right, it's true. Anyway, so listen. So she meets Granddaddy. They get married. Now I want to know, how did you find your way to Granny and Granddaddy?
Well, they found me. Mrs. Hilda Simmons, who lived in the neighborhood where they lived, was approached about adopting a baby that needed a good home. She didn't think that her home was a good fit, but she knew Mama and Daddy well and felt like they would make good parents. So they met my mother, my birth mother, Mrs. Virginia Viola Crocker Pope.
Hashtag Viola's Vino.
And brought me home on Friday, February 19th of that year, and provided a loving home for me and for you in your early years, Travita. Since this wasn't an adoption with sealed records, Viola and her family were able to keep up with me and know that I was being well cared for. And I've always loved and respected her. It couldn't have been easy to give up a child, even though you knew that that was what was best for the child. That could not have been easy. But she loved me, and she did what she thought was best. And I did eventually have a relationship with her in adulthood. So it was a good thing. Percy and Catherine needed a child, and I needed parents at the time. So it all worked out. So now, I know we've been talking about Portia's place, and we've been doing a lot of talking about Catherine Portia. And I know it's because Granny was a great influence in your life because you spent most of your time with your Granny. But I have to give shout outs to other strong grandmothers in your life. One of them being Viola. She was a strong woman. She overcame obstacles. She was a cancer survivor. She battled heart disease later in life. And she still stood strong. One of the things she did was go to nursing school after giving birth to 8 children. She went to nursing school and graduated in the class of the first group of African American nurses from Norfolk General Hospital in Norfolk, Virginia.
Hold on, Mama.
What?
Do y'all hear like the blood that's running through my veins? Strong women, powerful women, whether by nature or by nurture.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Mom, good stuff. Keep going. Sorry,
Anyway.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No.
Just hearing that. Say that again, Mom. She was a part of the first
Group of it was the first class of African American nurses that graduated from Norfolk General Hospital in Norfolk, Virginia. We still have copies of the articles that were in the Journal and Guide in Norfolk about that graduation. Anyway, so she was a strong woman, and you have her DNA. And her life actually paralleled with your granny's. They did a lot of the same things. They were active in their communities. They were active in the schools. They participated with the voting. And there were just so many parallels. Oh, and after graduating from nursing school, she was an LPN who worked at the Naval Hospital, the Portsmouth Naval Hospital in our area until her retirement. So, a strong woman.
Yes.
So let's move on to another strong grandmother, Mrs. Annie Mae Jackson. She was a woman of drive and determination, rearing 7 sons and 2 daughters from the 1930s through the 1970s. She was also active in her community. She helped her neighbors and fed many people from her garden and from her smokehouse. She taught herself to use her left hand after she had a stroke, which caused her incapacitated her right side. She was able to do everything she needed to do with her left hand. She got her driver's license in her 60s. And so then her sons bought her a car, and she drove all around the neighborhood. But most of all, she was a woman of wisdom, grace, and gave good advice.
Yes, she did.
So you're a combination of 3 strong grandmothers, whether by nature or nurture, they all made you who you are.
It's taken all I have not to start crying.
No,
you know
can't do
that,
that.
right? But I'm not going to do that. But let me say this. It's amazing, you know, just sitting down and talking to you about this and sharing some of these amazing things and the obstacles that they obviously had to overcome. Look, I remember Grandma Annie Mae making sweet potato jacks for me with one hand, her left hand. And she was right-handed. When she had that stroke, she was right-handed. So she had to learn to do everything with that left hand. Mm-hmm. But y'all know how it is when you're pregnant. You get whatever you want. If there's anything that you want to eat when you're pregnant, somebody's going to make sure that it happens. And I mentioned to her that I would have loved some sweet potato jacks. And she actually made them for me with her one hand. And let me tell you this part of the story. I didn't get there for the first batch. I cannot remember what happened, but I didn't make it to her place. And she was living alone, by the way, living independently. Something happened. I didn't get there for the first batch, but she made a second batch for me. But you are right. These three women just have so much in common, Mom, in the time that they were living and the things that they had to do and raising children. And it blows my mind. And it also shows me also with determination and hard work, there's just nothing that you can't achieve. And so I am so thankful that I had these three amazing grandmothers. And you heard in the first podcast, Viola's vino, and then of course ending with May's message. And I hope you recognize that these women were also very important. I remember last story, and then we'll get to the wine. I just remember Jeffrey being little and Grandma Annie was in the hospital and him reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to her. And what a big deal that was. Yes.
That was because Mrs. Jackson was all about education.
Yes.
She encouraged all of her children to go to college.
Yes.
She said she was not able to get the amount of education that she wanted, but she was determined that if she ever had children, that they would be educated. And so she instilled that in them and made sure that it happened.
Yes.
She encouraged and prayed.
Yes.
And encouraged.
She did. And I just have to add in a kind of funny note to go back. I don't know if you all picked up on this or not, but Grandma Annie was having babies for 22 years. That's a long time to continue to have children. My father is the baby.
Youngest.
The youngest. I won't say the baby, but the youngest. He was the only one that was actually born in a hospital. But my uncle, the oldest uncle, who is still alive, is 22 years older than my dad. Can you imagine? Like, I've heard stories that daddies told about them coming home and not knowing who their older brothers were because there was such an age gap. But I think it's so cute. It's really cute. They call each other Alpha and Omega, and I love that. I just love the family, and I love their closeness and their relationship. So, all right, y'all, it got kind of heavy there for a minute, didn't it? But we're going to move on to Viola's Vino now, and we're going to continue our highlight of wines that are prominent in the state of Virginia. And so for this particular Viola's Vino, we are going to highlight Chardonnay. I will tell you that my mother is not a Chardonnay drinker. So the reactions that you see from her will be her own, and they will be true and honest, and her feedback will be just that. But I want to tell you a little bit about Chardonnay. It is a grape that originated in France. It is of the Pinot pedigree. It grows well in chalk, clay, and limestone soils. Similar to the Viognier that we tasted before, Mom, this one is going to be a full-bodied wine. The grape is thick-skinned. The interesting thing about Chardonnay as well is that it's typically more explosive in the beginning. So with this Chardonnay, you're definitely going to taste more of that flavor on your palate in the beginning versus the Viognier, which you kind of get more of that towards the end as it's leaving the palate. So it is full bodied. Some of the aromas of a Chardonnay, which, oh, I'm getting thirsty thinking about it. You're going to have yellow apple, lemon. I think my mom was saying I'm always thirsty, but whatever. Yellow apple, lemon, as well as pear. Sometimes there'll be a little pineapple in the aroma as well. The thing about Chardonnay that's also interesting is that, Mom, sometimes Chardonnay is made, sometimes it is fermented in oak, which often gives Chardonnay the oaky flavor, which is a turnoff for some people. But for those that don't like the oak, the really great thing is some winemakers actually make Chardonnay that is unoaked. That means that it is fermented in stainless steel. So there will be no oakiness or oak flavor to that. But you are going to see that explosive flavor in the beginning. It's going to end on a more savory note. You'll notice the first one that we're going to taste is going to be the unoaked. So with that stainless steel fermentation, you're going to notice, Mom, there should be more lemon zest, more green apple, maybe even some grapefruit. Whereas the Chardonnay that is fermented in oak is going to have more of that buttery finish with vanilla and spice, but you'll definitely taste the oak there. So why don't we get started? I have an unoaked Chardonnay that's in front of you. This was actually produced by Kendall Jackson. Many of you are probably familiar. Kendall Jackson's a very popular, winemaker. This is a wine that you can buy at your grocery store if they sell them there, or at your local liquor store. The price point is very reasonable with this. But Mom, let's give it a swirl. And then we're going to kind of smell and see if we smell any of those aromas that I mentioned in this. Ooh, I definitely smell the lemon zest. How about you?
Okay, yes, I smell lemon.
What else?
I don't smell any other fruit.
No other fruit, so only lemon for you
Only
in this
the
one?
lemon,
Okay.
and it's strong.
It's strong.
It's strong.
It's strong. So makes sense. More explosive in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Gonna have that more savory end note with the wine. Okay.
Okay.
So let's give it a taste and see what you think of an unoaked Chardonnay. Tell me what you think.
It's not as strong as some Chardonnays I have tasted.
Do you prefer it without the oak? Do you think you like the fact that there's
I
no
think
oak?
the unoaked does make a difference and does make it lighter. Mm-hmm. It's not as heavy. Is that the word?
Okay.
It's not as
It's
heavy
the word
as
for you. That's fine.
Yeah, it's the word for me. I'm not the wine drinker.
It's all right.
Remember?
I understand what you're saying. It's got a lot of body to it.
And it goes down easy. It's just...
It wouldn't be your first choice.
It would not be my first or
understand.
second choice.
Well, and let me tell you this too. Chardonnay is a wine that, number one, pairs well with your soft cheese. It's also going to be really good with chicken, turkey, pork loin, even scallops, Mom. And I know that this isn't a wine for you, but I could certainly see this being paired with a nice scallop dish. And you want to think about this. So whereas with the Viognier, we talked about the fattier foods, Chardonnay is going to pair well with your leaner foods. So when we're talking about those lean meats or those delicate things, we're talking about, and let me tell you, Chardonnay is amazing with oysters. I've even been to a Chardonnay and oyster pairing before. So if you're an oyster lover, Chardonnay is definitely something that would pair very well with that. White mushrooms, asparagus, all things that Chardonnay would pair well with. So it's good. Anything else you want to add about it?
No, I think you've covered it. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize.
I think you've covered
Listen, This is the best. Listen to me. Because, again, we are two different. Well, and I like some of the sweet wines too, but Mom is definitely a sweet wine drinker. I do prefer some of the drier wines. Your Chardonnay, I will say this to you. If you've been invited to a dinner or a little summer get together by the pool and you want to take a bottle of wine that you think will be well liked by a large group of people and you're looking to take a white wine, a Chardonnay is always a good choice. If you, and I don't want to say it's middle of the road, and because Chardonnay is also used to make a lot of things. Remember earlier in the first episode, we were talking about how Chardonnay was a part of the Chandon's garden spritz we were drinking. Chardonnay is used to make a lot of wines. You know, it's really great for blending, but by itself, it's going to go with a lot of things that someone may have at a brunch or a dinner that you've been invited to, or even just a hostess gift. Chardonnay is a good choice for you to take because it will typically always go well. I finished my taste, but I think Mom's going to pour hers out. And then we're going to move over to a normal Chardonnay, which has been fermented in oak. The particular one that we're drinking is a Josh Reserve Chardonnay. For those of you familiar with Josh, it's a great label. I shouldn't say label, but a great winemaker. Josh produces delicious wines across the board, reds and whites. If you're unsure of a wine to get, and you're providing a gift for someone, Josh wines are always a good choice, and they're going to always be in a great price point. So, Mom, why don't we pour in our Chardonnay? This particular Chardonnay was fermented in French oak, which is going to be the preference most of the time if you're talking about that. And we can have a lot of discussions in the future about different types of oak, but this one fermented in oak. So, Mom, let's do the same thing we did the first time. Let's swirl it around in the glass. And remember, this is going to be the one fermented in oak. So I don't anticipate us having as many of the citrus notes in this one as we're going to have more of the vanilla, the spice. I would anticipate a more buttery finish. Probably what you're used to if someone put a glass of Chardonnay in your hand, okay? So let's give it a smell. Any aromas here?
Okay, the vanilla.
Yes,
the
for
vanilla
sure.
and the oak. I
Yes.
do smell the oak.
Mm-hmm. I do. I smell the vanilla as well. It's coming through pretty strong in this, and the oak as well. All right, let's take a taste. I know, just a little taste.
Yeah.
So, I definitely... Don't worry, y'all. We'll have someone here that loves dry wine and loves Chardonnay. I got one sip out of Mama. I got to be happy with that, right? Mom, I definitely taste that buttery finish. I definitely taste the oak in that. What can you tell me about what you tasted when you took a sip? Okay, you have another. Yeah, give it another try. Give it another try. Tasted the oak. She tastes the oak.
And it's just strong, and it's just not.
It's not to your liking.
It's just not to my liking. But I think I did say that I am not the wine drinker.
You said it, Mom. You said it more than once.
My palate
probably.
is not sophisticated or well trained.
Okay.
So I'm just.
And that doesn't. And listen, Mom. This is the great thing about wine. Everyone is going to have a different palate and a different opinion. You remember well when I first started drinking wine. All I drank was sweet wine. I didn't know any better. You know, I had not tasted any good dry wines or to even know what I was tasting. So it definitely took time. And Chardonnay is not necessarily my go-to white wine, but it is a wine that is very popular in Virginia. Some great wineries are making wines there. In my time in Virginia, I've definitely been able to experience some delicious Chardonnays. Barbersville is one of my favorite wineries there. Stone Tower's another that's recently come into my radar. Shout out to you, Kate. Horton's another good winery there. King's Family. So some amazing Chardonnays are definitely being made in the state of Virginia. Again, this is a great wine. If you're looking for a good Chardonnay, you could never go wrong with Josh Reserve, rated over 90 points. We'll talk about those rating scales later and what they really mean. And to be honest, Mom, they're important. They're definitely important to the people that are producing the wine, but it doesn't matter what the points are if you don't like the wine. So I definitely challenge you and encourage you to, try some Chardonnays. Go to your local, liquor store or package store, if you call it, or if you have a wine store or a favorite winery, and try out some, Chardonnays. Some wineries are doing both unoaked and your regular oaked Chardonnay, so you'll have an opportunity to try both. But I do appreciate you trying both of them, Mom. I know it's not your favorite wine. We'll get to the sweets later, but listen, another great I think wine choice here. Again, I really wanted to focus on wines that are prevalent in my home state, and particularly in a state that Catherine Portia lived in for so long, as well as my other grandmothers. So it's time for us to wrap this up, and I want to leave you with May's message, which is definitely ties into our discussion today, and that is I want to encourage each and every one of you to never give up. Whatever that dream is that you have, whatever that desire is that you have, and that accomplishment that you're looking for, whether you want to start your own business, whether you want to launch a podcast when you know nothing about launching a podcast. Whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's that next degree, whether it's getting your GED or high school diploma, maybe you're looking to get a new job or promotion. Don't let anyone tell you that it's something that you can't do. Anything that you put your mind to, followed by effort and hard work, because that's the key. You can't just sit around dreaming, right? You have to put forth the effort. But don't think for a minute that you can't accomplish it. It may just be reestablishing a relationship with a friend you haven't talked to in years. Don't give up. Anything is possible if you're willing to work for it. And I know that you can. And if you work for it, I promise you, you will achieve it. Never give up. Thank you for joining us today at Portia's Place. Cheers to you. Cheers, Mama. You don't have to drink anymore. Don't worry. Cheers to you. Cheers to you all. Thank you so much. Have a great day.